Section 13, Fair Housing and Mandatory Reporting Requirements, Ways to Lose Your Real Estate License. Ashley had been through enough broker meetings to realize that every investigation file seemed to begin the same way. Someone made a decision, believed it wasn't a big deal, and months later, that decision was sitting on Michael's conference room table. As everyone settled into their seats, Michael placed a thin file in front of the class. "This one is different," he said. "There wasn't a dispute over a contract. There wasn't missing earnest money. There wasn't misleading advertising." Ashley looked puzzled. "So why is it here?" Michael looked around the room before answering. "Because this case involved fair housing." The room immediately became quiet. David leaned forward. "If there's one area of real estate where there is absolutely no room for shortcuts, assumptions, or personal opinions, this is it." Michael nodded. "Fair housing isn't simply another law you need to know. It represents one of the most important consumer protections in the entire real estate industry." He explained that every Arizona licensee has both a legal and ethical responsibility to provide equal professional service to every member of the public. Violations of the Federal Fair Housing Act, the Arizona Civil Rights Act, or applicable local fair housing ordinances can result in civil liability, federal investigations, administrative enforcement actions, and disciplinary action by the Arizona Department of Real Estate. In addition, realtors are also bound by Article 10 of the National Association of Realtors Code of Ethics, which prohibits discrimination in the practice of real estate. Ashley nodded. "So even if ADRE isn't investigating first, they may investigate later." "Exactly," Michael replied. "Many fair housing investigations begin somewhere else." He explained that a complaint might first be filed with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, the Arizona Attorney General's Civil Rights Division, or another enforcement agency. A civil lawsuit may also be filed in state or federal court. Once a violation has been established, ADRE may review the matter to determine whether disciplinary action against the licensee is appropriate, because the department's primary responsibility is protecting the public. David looked around the room. "I've heard agents say, 'I didn't mean to discriminate.'" Michael nodded. "And intent isn't always the issue." He explained that fair housing violations frequently occur because licensees unintentionally allow personal opinions, assumptions, or careless language to influence their professional conduct. Discouraging purchasers based on protected characteristics, selectively providing listings, using discriminatory advertising, or treating consumers differently because of a protected class may all create serious legal consequences. Ashley asked, "So what should an agent do instead?" Michael smiled. "Treat every client the same. Use the same professional process. Present the same opportunities. Allow clients to make their own decisions. Your role is to provide information, not influence protected choices." David added, "When in doubt, let the client decide." Michael continued, "I've reviewed investigations where the agent genuinely believed they were helping." Ashley looked surprised. "Helping?" Michael nodded. "One agent told a family, 'I know a neighborhood where you'll feel more comfortable.'" Ashley immediately understood. "They thought they were being helpful." "They did," Michael replied, "but statements like that may be interpreted as steering." He explained that even well-intended comments can create the appearance that a licensee is directing consumers toward or away from certain neighborhoods because of protected characteristics. The safest practice is to provide objective information, answer factual questions, recommend reliable public resources, and allow buyers to determine where they wish to live. Michael paused before opening another document. "But fair housing isn't the only issue in today's lesson." Ashley looked down. "I see another statute." Michael smiled. "Because experienced agents sometimes forget another responsibility: reporting." He explained that Arizona licensees have an ongoing obligation to keep the Arizona Department of Real Estate informed when certain significant events occur. Under the Commissioner's rules, licensees must notify ADRE of specified changes involving licensing qualifications and other reportable matters. Failure to report required information can itself become a separate violation, even if the underlying event occurred outside of a real estate transaction. Ashley looked puzzled. "What kinds of things have to be reported?" Michael replied, "More than many agents realize." He explained that reportable events may include criminal convictions, disciplinary action against another professional or occupational license, certain adverse judgments, recovery fund payments, and other matters identified by ADRE rules. Licensees are also responsible for keeping their contact information current with the department, including mailing addresses and other required information. David smiled. "I've actually heard agents say, if it didn't happen during a real estate transaction, ADRE doesn't need to know." Michael shook his head. "That's simply not true. The Commissioner expects licensees to remain qualified to hold a license. Changes affecting your qualifications or your ability to protect the public may require disclosure." Ashley asked, "So if someone doesn't report it, and ADRE finds out later? Michael answered immediately. The situation usually becomes much worse. He explained that ADRE often learns about reportable events from court records, criminal background updates, regulatory agencies, complaints, or other governmental reporting systems. Attempting to hide information frequently becomes a bigger issue than the event itself because it raises questions about honesty, cooperation, and professional integrity. David nodded. I've seen agents receive discipline, not because of what happened, but because they failed to report it. Michael smiled. And that's a lesson worth remembering. He looked around the room before continuing. The Arizona Department of Real Estate understands that people make mistakes. What concerns the commissioner most is whether a licensee demonstrates honesty, accountability, and a willingness to comply with the law. Ashley closed her notebook. So today's lesson really comes down to two ideas. Michael smiled. What are they? Treat every member of the public equally, and never try to hide something ADRE is entitled to know. Michael laughed. I couldn't have summarized it any better. He gathered the investigation file. Fair housing protects consumers. Mandatory reporting protects the licensing system. And together, they protect the public. Real-world Arizona example. An Arizona licensee was named in a fair housing complaint after making comments that prospective buyers believed discouraged them from considering a particular neighborhood. Although the licensee insisted the comments were intended only as friendly advice, investigators determined the statements could reasonably be interpreted as steering based on protected characteristics. The matter resulted in additional training, legal expenses, and an ADRE review of the licensee's conduct. The investigation served as a reminder that consumers should always make their own housing decisions based upon objective information, not the personal opinions or assumptions of a real estate professional. Broker tip. One of the best fair housing practices is to establish a consistent process for every client. Present the same information, use the same marketing materials, ask the same qualifying questions, and provide the same level of service regardless of who is sitting across the table. Consistency is one of the strongest defenses against allegations of discrimination. If you experience a reportable event, contact your designated broker immediately and review ADRE's current reporting requirements before assuming disclosure is unnecessary. Online discussion question. 1. Why is consistency one of the best fair housing risk management tools? Model answer. Consistent procedures help ensure every consumer receives the same professional service regardless of protected characteristics. Standardized practices reduce the risk of unconscious bias, unequal treatment, and discrimination claims. Question 2. Why can well-intended comments sometimes create fair housing concerns? Model answer. Statements intended to help may unintentionally influence housing choices or appear to steer consumers toward or away from certain neighborhoods based on protected characteristics. Licensees should provide objective information and allow consumers to make their own decisions. Question 3. Why is it important to promptly report required information to ADRE? Model answer. Timely reporting demonstrates honesty, professionalism, and compliance with Arizona licensing requirements. Failing to disclose reportable events may result in additional disciplinary action, even when the underlying event could have been addressed through proper disclosure.